Welcome back to the Munn Avenue Muse podcast, brought to you by Munn, M-U-N-N, AvenuePress.com. And I'm delighted to invite a different, special kind of guest today. His name is Emil Abedian, and we recently published his book called Counsel to Counsel. Emil Abedian is a founder and CEO of Counsel CPAs, which specializes in accounting and tax strategies for solo and small law firms. And he has over 2 decades of experience in both global law firms and small practices. So why in the world would we have Emil on this podcast today? And the reason is, I think Emil demonstrates not only with his expertise, but that as a writer, as an author, you can target a very specific audience that you're trying to reach, and a book helps validate your expertise and support your efforts to grow your business if that's your interest. So I think, you don't have to be a lawyer to be listening to this podcast, although it would help. But I think we can all learn a lot from Emil's journey of writing and publishing this book about how books can be so helpful in whatever your endeavor is. So, Emil, welcome to the Munn Avenue Muse. It's great to have you here.
Amazing, Charles. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, Emil, tell us, how did you end up doing what you do in your profession? What was the point at which you said, I want to do that?
So we have 2 stages here. It's one stage where I said, I want to run my practice. I want to run my CPA firm. And then down the line is when I decided that I only want to work with law firms, lawyers and law firms. And there's a reason for that, and we can talk a little bit about that also. But I as you mentioned, I grew up in Sweden, Charles, working for larger firms such as Ernst & Young, and then moving over to California, started at another larger firm, and gradually started up my own firm. And that's partially what the book is about. From the time I started my firm, the challenges I went through, and because no one taught me how to run a CPA firm. I went to accounting school. I have masters from business and economics. I worked with larger firms, so I know the trade, but no one taught me how to run the business. So when we slowly started, I just started doing based on whatever I knew was right, which, by the way, a lot of things I did was not right. I made millions of mistakes, which is fine. That's how we learn. But gradually, I got into it and learned that I can't serve everybody. Yeah, it's impossible. I can't do everything for anybody. So that's when I started gradually getting into working more and more with law firms until I felt comfortable that this is it. This is the industry I want to target and work solely with law firms. So that's a little bit about the book of how you can learn from other lawyers and law firms, our own clients. That's what we talk about in the book a little bit. We compare that to my firm, mistakes I've done. We discuss success stories, less success stories. I'm not going to call it the failures because we never fail. We only So there are some less successful stories. So I wanted to kind of get into it and explain and show the legal world or legal industry, lawyers that are just starting up, or are at the point where they're capped out and they cannot scale their operation more. So I wanted to share my experience with other lawyers to make that process easier for them. That's the entire idea with the book. But going back to your question, I wanted to be different. I don't want to be like millions of other CPA firms doing everything for anybody, knocking on the door, just a general practice. That doesn't help. That doesn't trigger me. That doesn't wake me up in the morning. But when a lawyer calls me and I know exactly what their issues are and the ways that I can implement strategies to help them to overcome their problems, That's what's motivating for me, and that's why we got into just law firm industry.
Yeah. Why did you pick law firms as an industry, though? Why? What was it that resonated with you?
To be frank, initially it was just a coincidence. I'm not gonna lie about it. We started getting more and more lawyers, and I always wanted to kind of specialize, but I didn't know in which route and how to do it. But when I started working with more and more lawyers, I started realizing the issues they're having. And most of the time, it's the same kind of problem, same kind of issues. They're overworked. They're doing everything for the operation. They work with CPA firms that are preparing the returns, and they might be preparing them very well, but that's all they're doing for them. Lawyers are craving advice. They're craving a strategic partner to be with them throughout the year, and not just a CPA that just prepares a return, give them the voucher to pay the balance due, and see them next year again. So that's how we got into more and more into law firms. But obviously, lawyers' accounting is different also with the trust account regulations. Each state have the state bar regulations that need to follow, and we help lawyers with that to make sure not that they're compliant with IRS, but also with their state bar for their legal matters.
Yeah, yeah. So you're by focusing on a niche, you know the pain points and the specifics that they're dealing with better than if you were a generalist. Is that's what you're getting at too? And the other thing you said in there is so interesting to me because I think the best things in life seem to happen to us by accident, right? Like serendipity. Uh, how you met your wife, that kind of thing. And in careers, that's true as well. I mean, um, I'm on maybe my fifth career, and I decided 10, 12 years ago I wanted to write a book. I had no idea that the book would lead to being an Amazon bestseller, but a friend of mine who's in the book business coming to me and saying, "Oh, I have a couple of authors that could use some help. Would you do it?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'll talk to them." And kind of by accident, Munn Avenue Press started. And over the last 2 years, we've worked with 90 authors in 10 countries just by accident. So in a way, by accident, you've become quite an expert and there are a lot of small, medium-sized law firms out there that need help. So it may be a niche, but it's a big niche.
It
Uh,
definitely is. There's a need out there for sure.
yeah. So what made you say, okay, I'm pretty good at this and I understand it well. Why write a book? What motivated you to write the book?
Yeah. I think I touched on it a little bit here, but I want to share my experience because we work with hundreds of lawyers and law firms, and we know their issues. And I know that most of the lawyers and law firms that start off their practice or are in the stage where they're kind of stagnated, they cannot scale their operation, are thinking about the similar issues. How can I do it? Why am I working 70, 80 hours a week and just making as much as I was making as an employee? Why would I do this if it's not easier? I started my practice to get flexibility, to do it the way I want to, but none of this is happening. So I wanted to share, first of all, my experience from my CPA firms, because in practice, the CPA firm business and the law firm business is the same kind of operation. We just happen to offer different kind of services, but the business
Right.
itself, the core business is the same business. So I've done it for over 15, 16 years for my own firm. So I've gone through millions of mistakes. So I want to share those, first of all, with my clientele and whoever's interested, but also from other law firms, the hundreds of law firms that we work with. See, why are these firms that are successful, what are they doing? What did they do that the other firms that are not as successful didn't do? And I want to share that. My entire purpose with this book is to share my experience and my knowledge. And if I can help just one law firm uh, scale their operation faster than they would without this book, I'm happy with it. That's the ultimate goal. And with the book, as you mentioned, it's a lot easier to reach out to your audience,
Right.
100%, because you create your credibility, and they read it. It would be a lot harder for me to share my experience just with a newsletter or just a blog article or just a video. It doesn't attract as much attention. With the book, I think it's a lot easier to get to the point, to the right audience, and share what you want to share with them.
Sure. Sure. And I would imagine if you have a prospective client, that contacts you, you can send them a book, right? And in a way, we have another author who wrote a book about selling your business. And she says, it seems like I answer the same questions over and over again. So when she gets a call from a prospective business owner that wants to sell their business, she sends them a book right away and says, turn to page 203, which will answer that particular question. But also, there's something about having written a book on a subject that impresses people that you must know what you're talking about. And it's not fake either, because if you take the time to write a book about a subject, you probably really know a lot about that subject, because writing a book is not a trivial experience or undertaking. You're doing it because you do know the subject, and like you said, you want to help other people succeed, and there's a lot of satisfaction in that, right?
To your point, it makes you, when you write a book, this is my first book. I never done it before. I had no clue what I was getting into, by the way, when I first got into it. But I'm happy I'm done it. And I would not be surprised if I come up with a second or third one also, because the process was actually fun. But what it does, it actually makes you think of what you're doing. Like somehow like a teacher. Like if you're a professor at the university, you know the knowledge, but it's not everybody can explain and teach other people. But with the book, it kind of helps you kind of think through the process from a different perspective to be able to explain it to other people so they understand also. So I think it was a great kind of exercise for myself to learn what I know from a different perspective. So I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, and in a way, it elevates your expertise. I mean, I've taught some business courses at Fairleigh Dickinson, and to prepare for the courses, to teach it, I had to really up my game, you know, and be organized about how I presented it and think about how to be engaging to the reader. And I think one of the things that you do well, and I think about and talk about often, is in your book, you tell stories. And it's, people, readers, whether they're lawyers or reading fiction or nonfiction or business people, whatever they are, people resonate with stories. And then your stories about this is what happened to me, and this is how things went off the rails, and this is what I dealt with. Uh, People are much more interested in that as opposed to do this, do this, do this, do this, do that. People shut down when that happens. But
I agree. Storytelling is key, because you don't want to, at least for the type of book I wrote, I don't want to make it very boring and, tax code and, all these boring things that people don't have time to deal with. That's why they hire us to do it for them. But you want to raise it. You want to raise the question so they can think about it. Oh, what I'm doing right now, there is a solution for this. I do not need to continue doing the way I'm doing. So by telling stories about other people that gone through what they're going through, I think that kind of keeps them calmer and makes them feel comfortable. There is actually a solution. There is a light in the tunnel.
yeah, yeah. And so, what was the writing journey like for you? From you know, there's a lot of things that go on before you have an idea for a book to you're holding a book in your hand. What was that like?
That was an experience itself for sure. So I still have a book coach that I work with because I never done this before and I had no clue where to start. I knew the ideas, I knew the topic, but someone needs to kind of help me structure it. So I work with Holly Hudson here, amazing coach that we work with. If I do another book, I will definitely go back to Holly and do it with her again. What Holly did with me and what she taught me is the thought process of writing a book, the way you need to structure your mind to make sure you put the right thing in the right place. And storytelling was one of her ideas too. Like we need to tell stories. We need to bring out the stories that you've seen with your own client, with your own situation, to be able to explain it to your clients. So we work with Holly for I don't know, maybe year and a half at least. This has been in my mind for over 2 years. I thought about it myself. I kind of came up with the model and what I want to write about, what I want to do, what's the idea. And thereafter I met with Holly, who kind of went through the process with me over a year, between a year and a half. And Holly introduced me to you, who helped me with actually getting the actual physical book in my hand, with publishing it and getting it out on Amazon and all the other online platforms. So I appreciate your help with this. It's been very, very helpful to have you and Holly on my side to really get the book out there, because that's not something that I know and know how to do. I know the
No.
topic. So,
And it was terrific working with you on it. It went really quite well. And Holly is amazing. We've worked on several books with authors that she has worked with. And in fact, Holly was a guest on the Munn Avenue Muse podcast some time ago. So if you're listening and interested in hearing what Holly does, you can tune in. And Holly and I have talked often about storytelling and how compelling that is. Uh, yeah. Yeah, that was a very interesting interview too. Um, so you are thinking about next books. Like, what would a sequel be, or a next book in a series for you be?
thinking about it is maybe to exaggerate. I would not be surprised if I would do the second one, but because I really enjoyed the process. Honestly, the process itself was really it was an experience, and it made me think in a different way that I enjoyed, make me challenge myself. So I don't know yet, honestly, what the topic would be, but I most likely would do a second one. The second one might be a little bit. I don't know, honestly. I would not be able to answer that. There's something bugging me in the back here. Is that the buzz that tells me,
Yeah, it'll come along. It'll
yeah,
come along. So Emil's book is called Counsel to Counsel, and the subtitle of the book is From Practice to Business: Build a Law Firm That Works for You. But I think there's a lesson in this for any of us, in that if you have expertise and you're willing to share it and willing to write a book about it, there is an audience there that you can help, but may also help you grow your business or develop what you do. So, like when I wrote my first book, which was the thriller Not So Dead, I had no plans to write more books either, Emil. um, but a couple of things happened. One is I finished writing the book and I developed these characters, and this is true of fiction, and I felt like I owed it to them to tell the rest of their story. I couldn't end it. Their lives couldn't end with my first book. But I think also business is complex, and there is a lot. I think your book is probably a great beginning for law firms to get organized and maybe really realize they need your services to do more. But then maybe there's like, how do I take it to the next level? Right? I've got the basics down. Now how do I go to the next level? And I wonder if there aren't really lessons in here for anyone running a small business or medium-sized business about just, how to get organized, how to grow.
It really does, Charles. I think most of the book here, except for a couple of chapters that are strictly related to law firms, most of this applies to small businesses. Because before working with lawyers only, I work with millions of different industries, and I've seen that portion also. And most of the businesses are structured in the same way, specifically service-based industries. And most of our prior clients, prior to moving over to law firms only, we work primarily with service-based industries, doctors, dentists, architects, and all that. And they run their operation very similar to lawyers and CPAs. So there's a lot of value that could be taken out from the book for even if you're not an attorney, in my opinion.
Right, right. Because the basics of all businesses are pretty similar, and it's just like the applications that can be specific to different businesses. Yeah. And you have great advice for, I think, any business that wants to grow, and the struggles that you personally went through or that your clients have gone through. Entrepreneurs have experienced those things. There was a funny saying, because you were talking about wanting to have the freedom to, run your business and grow your business. And I've been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and people will say, "Oh, it's great being an entrepreneur. You can, manage your own schedule and work whenever you want." And I said, "Yeah, that's true. Any 50 to 70 hours a week I choose, I can work." So that's kind of what it's like, right? I'm sure it is for you too. Yeah, so we can choose, but we're not working the 3-hour work week or whatever the name of that book was. That's not happening.
But I think if you structure the business correctly, the beauty is that I don't think you will work any less because I'm working as much as I was doing before, but I'm working on the things that I want to work on. I'm no longer working on things that I do not want to work on. Whereas before, when I first started, I was actually doing the bookkeeping for my clients myself, which is waste of energy and time because I can have systems in place where I have bookkeepers doing the work and I just review it and talk to clients from more of a strategic structure way to be able to provide the value. So I was wasting my time with doing bookkeeping that was not providing any value to the client as well. So that's the key of what you're working on it, and not, I think, how long you're working and how much you're working.
Yeah. I have the similar experience in the publishing business. Because a part of being successful is forming a really good team, and that doesn't have to be just people who are employees, but people who have special skills that you partner with to get the work done so that you can be focusing on being most helpful to your clients, and also the phrase working on your business instead of just in your business, right? So having the time as an entrepreneur, as an accountant, as a lawyer, to think about your own strategy and how do I grow my business as well as help my clients. And it's not by necessarily adding up numbers or taking a pencil to paper, right? Yeah, it's just very interesting, Emil, and I highly recommend your book, Counsel to Counsel, both to lawyers, but anyone in a business who has a business, wants to grow a business. It is available on Amazon. You just search for it. And Counsel, by the way, because it's spelled multiple ways, is COUNSEL, Counsel to Counsel. And it's also available on barnesandnoble.com right now. Let us know what you think. Great. And please join us again. This is the Munn Avenue Muse podcast, and you can listen to us. Please subscribe on Substack, YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. And we usually launch a new episode every 2 weeks. And if you have a book in you or an idea, whether it's a niche or a general audience book or fiction or nonfiction, reach out to us at the Munn, M-U-N-N, avenuepress.com. Emil, it's such a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey, both in business and in writing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Charles, for having me. It was a pleasure.